Yes, it's Wednesday, not Friday. No, it's Hi everyone, it's Anthony 𝐏𝐚𝐥, broker owner of Prodigy Real Estate. Vic is he's got a quick trigger. This is Vic DiBattaro, an agent here at Prodigy Real Estate, and we know by popular demand, Vic is back on the scene, and he has his coffee too. He actually has his coffee on the table.
Coffee and real estate.
That's
my
it.
Favorite things.
But today we have an interesting topic, and one of them is it's home selling season. But is that the reason for selling?
That is correct.
In the spring?
It's not the season.
It's the reason.
It's the reason.
We're going to get into that today
Why?
because I think a couple of things that we're going to address is like a lot of what we know about the home selling process in that we kind of like, a lot of it's based on myths, and we're going to dispel some of that. We're going to get into some of the things like how like negotiations in a very changeable or volatile interest rate environment. So if anybody wants to
Like the current market right now.
Yeah, it's volatile.
You know, even a week in this market can price out several clients out of
Yeah.
the price of even a couple basis points, percentage points.
Yeah. So I'll wrap that up in a question for you. So obviously the last month has been quite interesting. If anybody doesn't know, interest rates this week have come up a little bit. So what that's going to do is we're going to see a little bit, and we see it. You know, the good thing is that we're doing this live, and you don't have to kind of wait for the official CNBC stuff to come out to know where the market's heading.
Right.
So the big thing is that interest rates. I believe this is the third consecutive.
We're in the sixes now.
Yeah. So we're creeping up there, but we're not near the levels we were back in late October,
Right.
November, which was over 7. I mean, so we're not there. But we're creeping up, and the reason for that is, and this is proof to say that Fed rate doesn't impact mortgage rates, is the Fed rate is at the highest it's been, and I think they said the last.
Well, that's another, speaking of myths that we were talking about.
Yeah.
A myth is people think that because the
Fed
Fed
rate
raises the interest rates, that it correlates to the mortgage rates.
It don't.
It has nothing to do with
What
the
does
stuff. The 10-year treasuries are directly tied to your mortgage rates.
Yeah.
So that's why even though the Fed raised the rates, it still doesn't affect the mortgage rates. They're tied to the 10-year treasuries.
So the Fed met today again, and their intention is to boost mortgage rates, not mortgage rates, the
Interest
rates. So when you see the Fed increasing rates, Fed increasing rates is the amount that the federal government is subsidizing the banking industry with loans to fund their operations. So the bank borrows from the Fed to handle its obligations, right. And that's usually how the rates suggest that's how it's suggested to the marketplace. So so the banks obviously want to make money on the money that they borrow.
Well, that's how they make their money from the rates.
But there a couple of other interesting things, CNBC wise. Credit card debt is at the highest it's ever been, which is a real.
And auto payments. They're
auto
saying
payments?
that the average now monthly payment on a car, the average is in the $700 range.
I know.
For a car payment. Some
payment.
people lease cars for like $1,000 a month. And it's
interesting because I don't lease. I buy. So fortunately, when I got my car back in right after the COVID, I got 0.9. So it's like money. It's like getting money back. They were giving them away.
Yeah.
Right. If you hit it, everything right after the pandemic.
There was
whether you're buying a house or buying a car, it was like off the wall. So these rates were like down.
Rates were in the 2s for 30-year fixed.
2.5.
Well, they were in the 2s. Yeah, 2.5 for a 30-year fixed.
Could you imagine?
Never.
That's free money.
I don't know if we'll ever see it.
It's free money.
Pretty
So
much,
that,
yeah.
essentially, it's free money. But the big thing is let's get down to the numbers that we're going to be talking about, and some of the things about should a homeowner be looking at this market and saying, okay, well, it's spring season, we're gonna contemplate whether or not we're gonna go on the market. Should you do it? Shouldn't you do it? What's the reasons why? And I'm gonna say this again. Folks, you should never make a decision on selling a house based
On the season.
based on the season, and the other thing is based without a good reason. And if the reasons are there to move, a lot of people, like I see people for what they see as like an optimal time to sell. They're always looking for the optimal time to sell, with the only problem being the optimal time to sell is not actually, they gotta buy as well. So
Correct.
it's not gonna be optimal
So here's
all things around.
The issue with that, so besides that, there's less competition if you put your house on the market now, well, now we're going to the spring season, is the fact that, let's just say the interest rates right now are in the 6s.
Right.
You have a certain pool of buyers, it's an affordability factor, and they can afford to buy let's just say a $700,000 home.
Yeah.
But now you decide to wait, let's just say another month or so. We don't know what the rates are going to be at. Let's just say the rates now jump up to the 7s. You just took out an entire pool of buyers that were based on a debt to income ratio. They were able to afford that $700,000 house.
Yes.
And now a month later, they're no longer able to afford it because their monthly payment has now increased. So that entire pool of buyers got wiped out for your particular house.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at things in terms of, on many factors. It's very rare to see people time this out correctly. And
Especially
I've
with
had
this
people,
market.
it's funny, people, I have people who are on the waiting list. We're waiting for prices to drop, but they've been in the market for almost 7 years. So it's like I'm waiting for prices to drop. They said it's going to drop, it's going to drop. Folks, there's things called like absorption rate, which is just around, it's still very, very, very low.
The inventory.
Yeah, so the absorption rate is how many months on the market a home goes up for sale. There's somebody, I don't know.
I can't see.
Yeah. Are you going, do you have your contact?
I have contact lenses, but I'm still going.
Yeah, I have reading glasses because I tend to have
Getting
to
a
look
little
down.
older. The vision's going.
No, come on, you can see better now than ever.
Sure.
Got hawk eyes. Anyway, the big thing is, like you were saying, like how the pool of buyers.
So let's just say in
changes.
this market, the volatility of this market, week to week. Let's just say I'm on the market now, actively on the market right now, and the rates jump up this week, but maybe next week they drop again, but I'm active on the market. At that moment, I can capture that pool of buyers that maybe this week they can't afford the property,
There you go.
right? But now all of a sudden the rates drop. But if you're not on the market, you're gonna miss that.
And we've seen just that blip in the last 2 weeks.
And this
So
is
mortgage rates came down almost 1.5 points, I think last month, and it was like all of a sudden the activity.
jumped. We had bidding wars and
out of the blue,
they pulled
and
the
nobody
trigger.
really expected it.
No.
So it's like it was a very, very icy October and November. I mean, icy. People were literally like in panic mode.
So they work. It's actually it affects both the buyers and the sellers.
It absolutely.
Right? Not just people think that it affects the buyers, right, on affordability, but also as a seller, you want the largest pool of buyers to be able to afford your home. So you have more showings, more offers, which will
It's
result
the
in a
old
higher
saying when you go into home
sales
selling.
price.
If you're going into home selling, it's an old saying is, it's like everybody wants to sell at the high and buy at the low. And when you're dealing with your own living,
buy low, sell high.
yeah, it's nice. It's a nice idea, but I'm gonna say this for the record here is that I don't really see, like, I had people who sold at the height of this past market, and we've had it, where they're bidding up $60,000 over list price, and things
Right.
slow down, And then,
But what was the reason that
Interest
sellers
rates.
were getting? Because you don't mind, if money was, like you said, cheap money. If I'm at 2.5, 3%, sure, I'll bid $50,000 more. It's still cheaper getting a house at a lower interest rate and 50,000 than now at 6% or 7% rate.
So we did a little figure for you. So, you know, and this is where like negotiations could really impact whether or not you're getting somewhere. When you're doing negotiations on houses, and I see this a lot,
Bravado,
too much.
Emotional.
Too much of this goes on in the home selling process. Is like the average home sale around 700,000, and you have buyers that are negotiating $5,000 on a $700,000 house. The issue becomes in a volatile interest rate environment is what you think you're like establishing in like price is not necessarily panning out in cost. So what happens is, I see this a lot, is you have a delay in the process of negotiation of a couple of days, and a 0.2% like increase on like a $500,000 loan is over the course of the 30-year period that you have it is $20,000, and it's almost $1,000 a year.
Almost, yeah.
And for what do you save? So it's going to cost you $1,000 a year to get a $5,000 lower price because of the negotiation stalling out over $5,000.
Right.
The sellers, the same. I'm going to say the same thing to sellers. It's you got to take $5,000 and you have to find a way to make it work. There's too much loss on the idea, which is where the emotional side of this business people get trapped up in. It's like it's $5,000 on $700,000. It's like
that's negligible.
Yeah.
I mean, you're better off
it's like
paying $5,000 more, locking in a better rate than gambling with the rate going up a couple of points. And now the $5,000 that you think that you saved ends up costing you $20,000.
Well, the bank doesn't mind because they're going to take some extra interest.
They get it up front. The interest is always paid up front. They
so
get their money.
They're going to, you know, and people, I hate to say this, I see these deals getting contentious over, like, it's almost $750,000 for the average sale price on Staten Island. It's about 680 right now. It dropped below 700. If you watch the stats, and Kerry's over there typing away, like clicking. If you hear that clicking in the mic, it's Kerry making the next, you know, revolution in real estate. Anyway, but the big thing is that it could cost someone $20,000 over the course of that 30-year loan.
Sure.
For negotiating $5,000, and I say to myself, and it's like the $750,000 or $700,000 for the average sale price, approximately. When you're talking about $5,000, you're not really talking about like an insane amount of money to be like, you know, a walk-away number. It is a magic number that I've done this business now. This is, oh my goodness, I think it's year 18. That I have seen so many people lose not just $5,000, a seller lose tens of thousands of dollars on insistence that they're going to pull out of a deal over $5,000 on a $700,000 house. And it's like, I mean, and it's always $5,000.
But I've seen
I don't understand what it is about this business.
It's usually
and the number 5,000.
It's even lower than that. I've seen deals
Right, it gets to that. It always seems
over
to always
$1,000 over either a chandelier, over a refrigerator, a small ticket item. And I've seen cases where a deal fell through over a refrigerator or a chandelier. And now, well, it's $1,000 chandelier, you killed the deal, and now the house goes back on the market. Let's just say, hypothetically, we're going to get $600,000 on that house. That goes back on the market.
Interest rates
and then all of a sudden, the highest offer now that you get is maybe $550,000.
I've seen it.
And I've seen it, and so I call it either the $50,000
Mistake.
chandelier or the $50,000 refrigerator, and basically winds up costing the homeowner
It's
tens of thousands of dollars.
And when you deal with it, and this is why it's important for the sellers that when we talk to season, it's the reason. Make sure the reason part is what you're really reasoning it through.
And what we can say commitment.
You got to be committed to the process, and unfortunately,
It is a stressful process. I think they said, is it one of the most stressful
I
experiences?
think it's in the top 10 or the top 5.
I mean, it's up there with,
And for some people, it's the top.
yeah, it just is one of the most stressful things that someone can go through is moving.
Yeah, it's selling a house.
It's an extremely stressful process.
You know, I mean, it definitely, but that's, you got to be an active listener in the process. And so you'll save yourself a whole bundle of money if you realize that. You got to be a participant in the rationale of what you're dealing with. So you got to bring yourself down to a point where, you know, you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars. Emotions are very high stakes. I know everybody loves, you know, what you did with the backyard, and I get all that stuff. But I think there's the intrinsic value. So it's like when you go to the jewelry store and you buy a gold ring, and they say, well, why is it, you know, why is gold at $1,900 an ounce, but the ring that I buy is, you know, $7,000 for 1 ounce? You're paying for what they call sentimental value or value of utility, and that's what you're buying the house for. And you have to make that part of the equation when we talk about season and reason, right? We want to make sure that your reasons for doing what you're doing and the negotiation standpoint you're operating from is all lined up correctly, absent.
That's one of the most overlooked things.
Absent of the emotion.
Well, that's where it affects negotiations.
Yes, absolutely.
And we're talking tens of thousands of dollars are at stake. And that's why I tell people,
On the higher
most people, they will buy or sell a house probably maybe once or twice in their lifetime. Okay?
a lot of
We do this on a regular basis. I go to a closing every other month, or every other week I'm selling. We do this all the time. So we're familiar with the negotiations and the process, and there are a lot of moving parts. So a lot of
too many
times
moving parts.
we have to follow, you know, we have to be obedient to
Yeah,
the
the
clients.
old car.
The old car, right? So it's obedience. And I can always guide a client and say, look, this and this can happen, but ultimately the client will say, no, I want this.
Yes.
Because
And you have to follow along.
And
we do follow along with the
we
process.
follow along.
We try to get people to understand though, and this is why we do these lives, is like, I think one of the things you really want to do is competence is key in the whole entire. You're not negotiating like
This is high stakes.
$200 items or
This is
or
high
a handbag or like this is it is
$750,000,
That's high
$500,000, $1 million deals, $2 million. That's a
too much
lot
is left on the
of money.
table.
A lot of money's left on the table.
Too much money is left on the table, and if you're emotional in the process, I always say the coolest head prevails in this business. And in changing markets like this, where it does get tense, folks, there's not. We understand that it can be tense at times. Especially if someone really wants to move on quickly, it gets tense, and what happens is it leads to the next kind of like implosion. So you have to be open to who you're using, because I do think that a certain degree of separation between the agent and your closeness with them could help establish like where you are in the transaction process. And I do see that a lot, especially when it comes to family. Family tends to be the toughest, so it's they know best, and it's not always the case, and it gets contentious. And it's always been a contentious thing in the business with the family thing. It's an interesting topic, but we won't bridge that. So, you know, it's like, you know, when you see family members list a house with some random person, it's like, okay, we're just selling your house, but there's reasons for it. But the big thing is that you have to realize the seasons do not, and we want to make this clear, and I think we missed this part, do not change price.
No.
Okay? There is no correlation between when you put your house up on the market and having a benefit associated with that timing. So you got to follow what your conscience needs to do for you, not for the timing of the market. It's just, it's a myth.
Everyone loves that's listing
Yeah.
their home in the spring and summer. I'm the opposite. I love the fall and winter.
Ooh, there we go.
I always tell clients,
Good, wait, 5, oh, there you go.
we're good to go. I
Yeah.
always tell
A
clients,
little technical glitch.
you can't, like I said, I don't get any more or less money
Carrie,
based on the season.
are you watching Netflix back there?
No. I finished
Losing
you.
band-
This is another season of Ioana back there. Our signal is delaying out. I don't know if you caught the last piece,
But also, yeah, and timing. How fast are you willing to move? How committed are you to the process? That's
we
important.
have some interesting stories. We'll get to that when it closes about timing
Oh boy,
of a
yes.
closing. That's gonna be some doozy. That's a wild one.
That is one for the history books.
Yes, I said if you're in this
we call
business
war
long enough,
stories.
there's a war story book, and like that'll be coming out in the fall. That's just a joke, but it's like we have some interesting, and I fortunately there's a good deal of experience at work here, and I think you really need to. Fortunately, I'm one of the few people. There's quite a few of them out there. Well, the last of the last of the Asians that suffered through the last recession.
You were in the 06 crash.
Yeah, I started in 06, 07, 08. I got my license freshly minted in 06. And then I was into the depths of the frozen tundra of the Great Recession, which was not pretty for many people. But the good thing about that, it's like how do you say? It's like being thrown like a baby into water. It's like they just know how to swim.
Baptism
They
by
don't know any better.
I call it
So
baptism
it's like,
by fire. That's
this
my
is the environment you were brought into. You don't know what the good is because you're certainly starting with the bad. And I think that's sometimes the best place for people who are getting into the business. People think it's the best time to go when the market's moving fast. It's actually not if you're new. So that's another down the road topic.
Right.
But the big thing is that when you're going into the home selling season now, all factors, and the main one being is, and you should really stick to your guns on this, is the reason why you're doing this in the first place. Do not trap yourself on the idea. Everybody is going to make what the market suggests, and everybody's going to purchase in that same market. Unless, Florida is still, I'm hearing, there's
It's
some
red
it's
hot.
red hot.
Red hot.
And that's, this is why
I'm seeing
underlying
numbers-
fundamentals make sense. And people are making Florida their home at a rapid rate. I think it's one of the quickest.
I think it's probably the baby boomers. They're retiring at a
Yes, baby boomers.
record pace right now. And
Kerry's like saying we should open an office in Florida. She's ready to move.
I'm in.
Is that the truth? Is that what I'm hearing
Really,
over there? Is that the
right?
rumor? The rumor is that it's got to be a block away from the beach. So,
That'd be
so
great.
the break you could kind of like shoot out and like take the sun. We'll get a sun deck on the next building. But the big thing is Florida's hot, and if you're moving out there, I don't think timing the market here is going to help you at all. I think it's going to remain hot and may remain hotter.
I always say demand sets price.
That's it.
So
And
it's a
even-
high demand, and that's what's setting the price for Florida.
So
It's super
even in a
high.
high interest rate environment, a high interest rate environment may suggest that buyers there's a waning buyer pool. I do think that if the underlying fundamentals of the market, I always talk about, we've talked about this transitional markets. Transitional markets are places where prices kind of move up and down rather quickly, so the underlying fundamentals aren't strong, but people look as an affordable option. So So the prices seem artificially low compared to the corresponding areas that surround it.
Right.
So we see this a lot. So there may be some opportunities with the higher interest rates in those areas, and I'm not going to point them out because that's a phone call if you're looking for those things. So there'll be negotiation room where fundamentals, and I always say, aren't as strong. Usually, i.e. commute times are a problem, is one of many examples, or how far it is from their existing
Well, now
residence.
post remote work era,
Yes, but if
that's what's changing. During the remote work period of COVID, everyone was moving further and further away from the city and from their job.
But they're
But
forcing
now,
people back.
they're forcing people back.
Yes, they're forcing.
And now
people
you're realizing
back.
with the price of gas, and you're 2 hours away, and now you have to commute.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't such a wise decision to move so far away.
Maybe, but affordability is the issue. I think overall, housing affordability is still at an all-time high as far as like what it's costing the average. I think the last report was like, I think it was like 46% of someone's income is now based around housing. It was insane. It was like really high. It's one of the highest all time. And this is a thing, so we got the reasons. I want to give a little bit going into the next year, like what are you going to do with the housing market being what it is? And there are some things on the horizon that I do have my finger on and we're watching closely. There's a devaluating dollar, which is an interesting prospect I've been looking at the last 3 months. So the interesting thing, for the first time in history, and if you're watching this for the first time in history, the interest rates corresponding with the value of the dollar, it's never declined at the same rate. So,
Right.
and it's fascinating because, you're a Bitcoin guy.
Sure.
And you saw the last run up. So what I found out was that the valuation of the dollar, that international countries are dropping the dollar. They're actually selling the dollar on the market. So this is and if anybody's watching this is the first time fundamentally that's ever happened, I think in the 70 years.
Well, we have new players in the sandbox, which is cryptocurrency.
Yes.
Which is something that
And people
they call
dismiss
it
that.
digital gold. Like
People are dismissing.
a lot of people dismiss it, but
They shouldn't, because I do think at the end of the day, there's like, listen, everyone wants to sell a bill of goods that fits their need the best. And for the record, we have to state this: we do have positions in the
I have a
stuff we're doing.
few.
So we need to disclose that. But that doesn't. I'm not advocating that it's right or wrong. But what I'm saying is that there is the interesting thing about this week's report is that the corresponding rise in the Bitcoin price corresponded with the decline of the dollar
they're
value.
getting out of the dollar and into
But it's
cryptocurrency.
right. But the big thing is that interest rates being risen higher is the first time the dollar value dropped based on interest rates going higher.
That's
Which is
never in
not
history.
yes, which is
It's very
It's-
weird.
This is a
It's
very,
weird
unique understanding of like the very microeconomics of what's going on with the dollar. Maybe having some things to do with why things don't seem fundamentally there. There's like a weirdness about markets in
We
general.
have a
It's
shortage of
very-
inventory.
It's just there's a weirdness with the markets in general. Like, and if you're an economist, and I think if you're someone who understands numbers, I've been doing numbers. You've seen the numbers. I've been doing them for 13 years. They're and if you go to our YouTube channel, they're in there. I've done some studies on this stuff. It's a challenging jaunt, to say the least, to understand what exactly is happening month to month.
Even when we run comps on properties.
It's just-
I used to go back 3 to 6 months. I gotta go back maybe a few weeks, even a month,
It's
to get a
strange.
more accurate comp. That's how
It's a good thing you brought that up.
fast they change.
Market volatility in real estate is at the highest I've ever seen it. You make a very good point that you see that. volatility is the first time that I've been doing this business where week to week, the volatility of interest rates can have a profound impact, or activity can have a profound impact from a house getting 1,000 showings or not, or like completely crickets. And this is, so I want to say this with a
Perfect example, look at our
good deal of
Tottenville,
certainty.
look at New York,
Yes.
these areas. We took a few weeks to get the house in acceptance. It's
At the highest rates.
At the higher rates, and we moved quickly.
We move quickly.
And we got top dollar.
Yeah. So it's important to be in line with what's going on, but the market, but have a reason. The bottom line is that I do think that people who are selling now, Staten Island does a very good still.
And the demographics are changing in Staten Island. It's a very interesting thing. We're getting a huge influx of Brooklyn buyers just coming into Staten Island. And the current Staten Islanders are...
And we have a lot of Brooklynites moving straight to Jersey.
Some are just skipping, Staten Island, going right to Jersey, but also most of the Staten Islanders here are moving to Jersey. So it's just the demographics are changing overall between Brooklyn, Staten Island, and New Jersey.
Yeah. If I was to kind of put in perspective the two #1 places, I think Florida and New Jersey are in a close neck and neck tie as far as where we have movers going to.
Yes.
So it's very close now. It used to be purely New Jersey. Now it's more Florida than ever before. But the big thing is that going into the season, I want people to understand that market volatility is playing a very. And when we mean volatility, and obviously we're dealing more with the retail kind of public. Volatility is like how quickly up and down the market's moving, how rapidly, you'll see shifts in the market. So usually, as a given, real estate tends to be a stable incline or a stable decline. You don't usually get like jumps and pops and like a stock market where stocks could go up and down very quickly in value. It's not a marketplace like that. But it is, however, starting to become much more volatile than it has.
That's where we monitor not only where the market is at currently, but where it's going.
Heading,
where is it heading? And we stay on top of that. So you watch it like a hawk.
So, but market volatility is playing a role in housing that we've never seen before. I've done this for a long time. So if you're not understanding of market volatility, you could be left out in the cold. And I think, certain agents know better than others. If you know what those leading indicators are, I pay very close attention to the leading indicators going into the market cycle, into like a quarterly market cycle, and look at the trend graphs. The trend graph now is, I think, we did the report with Kerry.
The trend is your friend.
The trend is your friend, and the interesting thing is that it's kind of strange. We've talked about this before. You could see retail responding to the markets in different ways. I definitely believe that there's correlations between, and I know people who aren't really invested in this stuff, like Bitcoin seems to have a very corresponding effect with buyer activity.
Absolutely. I remember when Bitcoin hit its all-time high was in the 60s.
October was in the 16,000s, and it was absolutely crickets.
You're right. And as soon as it crossed 20,000,
25,000,
buyers,
even the buyers, it's like,
I don't know.
And even
it's
Wall
something that
Street.
they own. A lot of these buyers own crypto, and they're selling their crypto.
It's just, I don't know. It's odd, but it's very volatile.
It's something we never used before.
The markets have done extremely well in the last month. These last few days.
Today was
a disaster.
Yeah.
But again, but that's the type of market it is. It's like it doesn't.
From one week to the next.
It doesn't understand where it wants to go because some of the underlying aspects of the fundamentals of the market are not. If you were doing math and you said 2 + 2 = 4, you wouldn't get that math today. I could assure you that I do know my numbers well, and it's like you don't get a lot of this stuff to add up, and that's really the interesting thing. There's a lot of geopolitical things happening.
Oh
yeah. With how currency, I believe that's the next thing that's going to change is currency overall. what you're going to be expecting in the next 10 years is definitely not, especially with there's a war on currency between nations. So Russia, China have just announced a partnership.
I think people
to trade for the first time in history, to trade the yuan and the ruble are now going to be traded between each other as a means of trade where it was the US dollar. So it's an interesting thing that's happened over the last week. So that was announced, I think, I believe, President of China just visited Moscow this week, and they made an arrangement. It's not being seen as a thing, but this is a very, very difficult slide, because the problem is that the establishment as the world's reserve currency is a very important factor in how we maintain value of even our property. So this is something we have to monitor. It's not on the radar. It's not something people kind of talk about much. It's one of the things I do pay attention to is how the geopolitical aspects of the valuation of the dollar can weaken it. And it's weakened it. It has. It's been weaker. We've entered a period of strange weakness within increasing rate environment, which is not a very uncommon sign to see. And it's having an impact. So if that's the case, and we're raising interest rates and the value of the dollar is dropping at the same time, that is not a good sign, folks. We don't want to see that, because you expect rates to be deflationary.
Correct.
So it would be increasing the value of the dollar where...
Right, they want to curb inflation.
But the problem is you have international players who are giving up their money, who are giving up their dollars for other sources of currency. And this is something we need to be more, not just paying attention to interest rates anymore. We're going to be paying attention to the currency war that is well on the way, and that's going to play a factor in international business and real estate overall, because there'll be, it's one of the not so good things to report on, but I do think the market is relatively stable. So I do believe at the end of the day, the housing market is relatively stable. I do think, I kind of seen like a floor kind of be placed here. I don't think based on the inventory levels we have currently, we're going to see any more precipitous declines in price. There may be some
prices
what I
are
call
holding
localized,
pretty steady, and as a matter of fact, we had bidding wars in, let's just say, parts of New Jersey, like ultra red hot Manalapan.
Yeah.
Okay, low inventory, and we put a few offers on properties there. $50,000 above asking, and we've lost a few too.
Yeah.
To highest and best.
So my big thing is to you guys is just making sure that you understand we do have some things in make sure we're not using old folklore to make decisions on selling $750,000 assets. Okay, folklore is folklore. Let's stick to the facts and the figures, right? We say this all the time. Let's keep it to the facts and the figures, and you'll get to where you need to go. The problem is that we too much of real estate. You figure in an information age, we rely much less heavily on folklore. There's a lot of folklore real estate out there.
I love the myths that I hear. I've heard.
I mean, we see
I
people
heard
jumping
stories.
down.
People tell me, someone's gonna come knock on my door with a suitcase full of cash. I have never seen someone show up with a suitcase literally full of cash. When someone's buying, when they're putting a cash offer on your property, you're gonna go to a closing table with an attorney, and there's gonna be a check from the bank. Yes, for the full asking price, and that's a cash offer. But no one's gonna come to your house with a suitcase full of cash. I don't know. I love hearing that. I've never seen it. Maybe somebody has. I would love to see someone knock on my door with a suitcase.
And here's the bottom line, folks. If people have that kind of money on hand,
they're
very smart with it. So don't
imagine.
So if you don't have that available cash and you're expecting someone else to have it, they're probably the smartest person.
Hey, I got $700,000 right here.
Unless they're involved in something illegal, I'm sure they're not stupid with their money.
Right.
Because they have it to use. So let's keep it real for that. I definitely think that people make these there's so much folklore out there. So we got to stop. And I do think that has a lot to do with the trust of the real estate profession. And I think that you need to get competence. If you understand whether someone's competent or not, you're going to have to really do some homework and stop really relying on these like you know, it's like I got a scratch on my back, and you know, you have to have competence on your side in this process, or else it could, especially in markets like this.
We always advise our clients to ask
very-
2 questions to
Yeah.
us, right? And I always advise ask 2 questions, and they are A, how will you market my property, and B, how many homes did you sell in the last 6 months?
Yeah, I think it's
Simple, and it's right there. You can. Look it up
I
on
think
the
it's,
internet.
and I think you can even get even some of that, and I definitely think that it can be competence doesn't necessarily like I said.
Oh, you hire a contractor.
You have to watch. You have to watch what they do. So look, check out social media profiles. Go do it. Go see the knowledge and the ability for them to translate what they're seeing in the marketplace into what you really want to have to happen next. Because if you're relying on something, there are some interesting, cute things out there. There's no doubt about it. People do some phenomenal things on Instagram and now TikTok, and it's cute, it's funny, and it's great. I think it's absolutely rounds out the profession well. However, there should not be a cavalierness with the idea that the average home sale is $700,000, and you need to start looking at that as being a very serious matter. And you should be looking at some of the serious content that's actually being delivered and seeing if they could translate what you really need to be hearing when you're making that decision, regardless of the season. So if you're having a reason to sell, you need the reason to have competent people working in that direction. And that's where Victor comes in, that's where I hope I come in, and every agent in this office comes in, is that they have access to information and data, and we keep our people briefed on some of the very, very unique characteristics of the market, not the jumping up and down in front of your screen and saying, it's a buyer's market, it's a seller's market, it's a buyer's. No, folks, you got to get the fundamentals down. You got to nail this stuff down to science and some math, and like saying, does the person understand like where our leading indicators are, where our trailing ones are, how we follow the trend, is my location specifically beneficial or not? And sometimes it's the person that you want to hear least or sounds the worst is actually the best. So you have to be able to. Nobody helps you.
I always tell people, you're not hiring me to be your friend. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear.
But you become friends with people.
Oh, absolutely.
You have some great friends.
They invite me for coffee.
That doesn't mean he's not friendly, folks.
But I basically arm them with good information, not what they want to hear.
The truth.
Which is the truth.
And sometimes the truth can be painful.
Yes.
Sometimes. I can't always be, rose-colored glasses. And make the wise choice and understand that, this is a process, and you need to let that process play out in a way that makes good fundamental sense by hiring competency as part of the equation. Okay? And do you have any parting ideas or plans for the next coming few weeks?
I always, we're going to close it and say it's not the season, it's
the
the reason.
That's it. Make sure you have the reasons
Those
right.
are my parting words.
And I think that spells about it. What's your pizza place of choice today? You mentioned pizza.
I can give a kudos to went to Belly Bocce Focacceria on Arthur Kill Road, and their pizza was phenomenal. I used to go to the bakery in Tottenville, but their pizza was excellent. The owner, really nice guy. My wife is Sicilian, she had the panel sandwich, delicious stuff. So kudos to Belly Bocce Focacceria.
Yes, and if I wasn't a low-carb person, I'd probably be there eating pizza now. You have any recommendations, Kerry? We can't leave Kerry out of the conversation. Kerry, what's your restaurant recommendation for the week?
For me, honestly, Portobello Cafe.
We would expect you to lie, so she had to use it honestly.
No.
Portobello!
Yeah.
That's right here.
I've eaten there, very good place.
Portobello is Robinson Avenue.
They have buy one, get one free dinners on
Awesome.
weekdays.
Every weekday?
Every week.
You heard that here first.
All right.
Buy one, get one free entrees
Yeah.
at Portobello,
Cafe.
which is
Alright.
Portobello Cafe, which is on Robinson Avenue, not too far from here, and Highland Boulevard. And they're an institution around here. They've been around for quite a bit.
Yeah.
Me, on the other hand, I always like my Tomo sushi. So Tomo has always been a place I've gone to, and you
Now
know.
you're getting me hungry with all this.
I know, right?
We don't even eat lunch around here. You gotta beg people to eat lunch. They're so excited.
I actually skipped
They're
lunch
so
today.
excited about what
Yeah.
they do. They can't even eat lunch. It's just that's how we roll around here. But anyway, it is Wednesday, right? Yeah, it is Wednesday.
Yeah.
Is
We're
it-
over the hump.
yeah. Yes, that's for sure. But anyway, it's great seeing you all. I always enjoy taking my time to talk to Victor. He's always very insightful and straight to the point. He's an Aries for sure. And if you haven't seen our interesting TikToks on TikTok,
I'm gonna check it out.
Check out
You
it.
Yeah, on
you did
Aries.
an Aries one? Good.
yeah, it's
I'll-
out there. It's
I'll
out there. It's
take a-
funny.
I'll-
I had to do a little good deal of acting. I
I'm
wasn't
gonna-
at my 100%.
I'm gonna take a look at it.
It's
Critique it.
definitely, yeah, you critique it. You know, it was rather quick and rather fun. You know, we do some entertaining stuff like everything else, but you definitely represent them well, though. I gotta tell you, he's a true representation. Me being a Libra, on the other hand, maybe I am. But
We balance each other out. It's good.
yeah. Yes, it's like okay, Vic, I'm the balancing act. Vic is charging forward. Sometimes you gotta give him
Yep, right
give him a
on
little
the
pull. But it's great seeing everybody, and I take the time to thank you all, and hopefully, I know we have something that's coming up on Friday, and you tune in for that, and stay tuned to our multiple channels, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest. We're not on Snapchat yet.
We'll get there.
I have no idea. That's one of the things I haven't touched. My son probably, maybe next year when I have homework, he'll actually figure out Snapchat for me. I don't think so, but anyway. You have a great weekend.
Have a
and
good
see
night,
you, I'll
everybody.
see you in a couple of days.
We'll
All
see you
right.
soon.
All right. Take care and have a good night. Here comes Kerry. Hit that button.